listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is March 2nd, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to our podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday morning?
Spencer, good morning to you. Yes, this is a very early record for us, so
yeah.
Good luck, brain. We're in it together.
Yeah, we have to fit this in before I leave for bargaining, so it's literally one of those days where you're like, all right, we got to get a show.
Yeah, which is like, it's not how I do things. I don't come online for another couple hours usually, but here we are, and it's been a big week, obviously, and we're heading into another big week, so it's exciting times, man. WoW's like alive again. It was sort of collectively holding its breath for a couple months. I feel like 11.0.7 didn't really do much to energize people. I don't really think it was designed to do that either. It was not really a huge chunk of content, but it was something to do, and it was a powerful item and whatever. But, a lot of people were just like, I'm fine skipping this, or I'm not really going to invest in this. But now, now it's a whole different story. We're back in it, and there was a lot of stuff to do this week, even without season, really.
There was. It's certainly enough out there to keep people busy. I definitely felt like I was behind because I didn't get to log in and really do any WoW stuff until Thursday night. I forced myself to. I don't know how bad that sounds, but it was energy wise. It was not for lack of wanting to do it. It was just literally I was so drained every day from being busy with real life stuff that it meant that on Thursday I peeled myself off the couch at 7 p.m. or something like that after having dinner and went up and forced myself to stay awake basically while I played 2.5 hours of WoW, which was fun. I did the whole campaign aspect to get through that. I left all of the side quests alone because I knew that Darkmoon Faire was coming up this weekend, and if there was anything reputation based in those side quests, I knew I could hang on to those. But I wanted to do the main storyline because A, I want it done before this when we record today, and B, because if it unlocked any access to anything inside of the zone, I wanted to be sure I had all that unlocked so I wasn't missing out on reputation when I did in fact manage to log in and do things. And it seems like so far the sort of loop there is pretty forgiving. It's a few world quests. They are the multi-day world quests. There isn't a daily thing that I'm missing out on. So I felt pretty good about that. Also, the reason why I did Thursday is because Fridays, when stuff tends to do its soft reset, there's that midweek reset on Fridays. So I wanted to be sure I got that done on Thursday when I was looking at doing that stuff. So yeah, that worked out well. I'll say first impressions of the new stuff is they really nail the goblin vibe, which I dig. I think that's neat that they did that. I really am super nervous about how the car will be received by a lot of people with the drive system. Now there's a lot and here's sort of the point on that, which is there are now multiple people out there who are posting guides and tips and tricks onto how to get your car to be steerable for your average player. Because there's a lot of people out there that get into this thing and are like, wow, when I try and turn a corner, I just can't turn a corner. And I understand the intention is to go fast and to use drifting and to, do craziness with that. But I know enough people who don't like dynamic flight that I can't picture them liking this, right? So it's one of those okay, that I'm a little nervous about how it's going to be received and how that's going to go over the next month or so as more and more casual players get time to play and jump in and check it out, and whether or not they'll be frustrated with that, because it is a wonderful way to get around town. It's so fast, and you it really does help out a lot with doing your loop inside that area. So I am very happy with that. But I do almost wish that the first iteration of car that they gave you was slower and handled really well as far as doing turns and stuff. If you turned your mouse to the right, you actually turned the car to the right at the same time, kind of same speed, being able to control it that way like you can with a normal ground mount. I think that might have been the wiser way to go, and then slowly added in ways to speed it up and soup it up and do different things, and it affected stuff and et cetera, I think might have been the better way to go. But that's just my opinion on this, because I don't want it to be a system that gets lost for a lot of players because they just try it for 20 minutes and go, this isn't fun, I don't want to use this, I'm just going to get on a ground mount and be slow for the rest of the expansion, which is not not cool. So I'm nervous about the car, but otherwise I'm liking what I'm seeing. I really enjoy the activating tasks, the 10 tasks that you can do, and then you have to take a break. That was really well done. I kind of wish that the green arrow they put on the car was something that guided you. Could be a golden arrow that guided you when you clicked on something on your mini map to go to it. Kind of wish that was a thing like they currently have for a lot of add-ons out there that allow you to sort of put down waypoints for things. They clearly have the technology in the game. We've now seen it in the game above the car. So it would also help if in the city when you're driving around, you could actually go, hey, I want to go to this world quest, and click on it, and a golden arrow would appear above the car, and you could drive towards it with the golden arrow. That would be helpful too, because that would then allow folks to not have to have their map open and in their face for a lot of, or even, I guess there's the tip and trick, which is Shift M, which will open a smaller version of the map in the corner of your screen so that you can actually see that. But yeah, that's something that I think they could do with a little bit of help with, because the city's a bit cramped, a bit tight. There's a lot of, weird physics that happens when you go off of ledges in the car where you kind of float, which is an interesting effect. But yeah, I don't know. I'm digging it. I love that the raid is right next to the hotel. I think that's going to be really great and fun. I like where the story's going so far. Yeah, I think overall it's landed, pretty. This is like a 7 out of 10 for a new chunk of content for me. This isn't like blowing my mind crazy amazingness, but it's pretty cool. Like, it's up there.
Yeah, I get that. I have similar frustrations with Drive. I did all the campaign questing. I did all the the local stories, as they call them. I did world quest loops. I did other weekly quests. I did some of the various outdoor activities. It's a cool zone. It's very compact. It's very dense. It's really not a very big zone at all, which is good and bad in some ways. But it's I think part of the challenge here early on is going to be just figuring out getting used to where stuff is in the city and where you're actually going, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the Drive frustrations, really. I think overall the presentation was awesome. I love the campaign questing. Some of the local stories were incredible. I think they were basically better than the campaign.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to them for sure. Like
yeah. There's a couple great ones, like just all timers in there, I feel like, and also it shows you sort of like a different side of Goblin Society in WoW than we've ever really seen. Definitely, presents them more as people and people with like diverse needs and lifestyles and whatever, which I think is really cool. It's really the first chance they've had to do that on a scale like this. Goblins have been in the game as playable since 2010, but always sort of in the background. And it's like, okay, well, they've traditionally been sort of this, like, they're like merchants or they're pirates or something like that, and they don't really have much of a faction alliance and whatever, or they're just straight up like bad guys, right? That we've seen kind of those angles, but we haven't seen this angle. So I like that, and I thought they did some cool stuff with it. And yeah, some of them are bad guys, and some of them are just regular people just trying to do what they need to do. I think a lot of the new graphics I thought were great. Like the new interiors are really cool. All the new buildings and props and all that stuff, they look great. There's some cool new creatures. So I really like the presentation. I like the questing. I'll echo your sentiment that like the outdoor activities feel good and kind of low impact, and it's like, do them if you want to do them, but it doesn't really seem like a big ask that the game is making of you. It's not like sit here and do Crazy Taxi all day. Like, it's not, I can't see myself really doing that beyond a certain point of the patch. So that's cool.
It definitely does not have anything in the game, anything in that zone that feels like, okay, this is my loop I have to do every single day. It's very much a similar thing that we've seen with the previous zones, this expansion of, okay, here's the things you got to hit as far as like your weekly tasks go, and here's some world quests you can choose to do if you want to. Maybe something ties in with a weekly task that will make you want to do some of those world quests more, but otherwise you could like pretty much ignore the majority of the zone if you wanted to, as far as that goes. And I feel like that's still them leaning into the sort of the same methodology they have approached Dragonflight with, where it's like, okay, there's stuff to do, but it's not you have to do this every single day. You have to be on top of this in order to be relevant. And I think they're doing a good job at leaning away from what we were seeing in early expansions of, okay, you have to put in an hour and a half of WoW every day doing your chores. Otherwise, you're not going to feel like you can compete with anyone else out there.
Right. Well, I think a big part of that is shifting over to Renown, right? Because the Renown system means like you know that you're going to get to the end of this rep track and you're going to get all these feature unlocks and vendor unlocks and everything else. You're going to get it as long as you're doing stuff. Whereas the old rep grind meant like you have to grind this. So like you have to figure out when you're going to do it, but you're never going to get to the end of it unless you grind this. So, I think that change has just been such a big upgrade, and it meets players more where they are with the state of the game in 2025. My big frustration, I think, with Drive, like, yes, the car is fast, and yes, out of the box, it's hard to control. There are some options to make it easier to control, but it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't fit with this level design, right? Like, this isn't a big zone. It's a very dense zone. So why do I need to drive around it super fast in this like hot rod, goblin death machine, right? Like, it's weird. What I've been doing now is like always have a waypoint somewhere of the next thing I'm going to, like make sure I have that selected, and then I just like focus my eye on that little yellow pip that the waypoint sends you to. I don't even look at my car or whatever. That's been helping me a bit, but it's like this system would be awesome in a place where you had way more room to operate, or you had to cover longer distances or something. You're not really going anywhere inside Undermine, so that's been a little weird for me, I think. But there's a couple other things I don't love about the outdoor zone. Like, mining stinks, man. There's some mining nodes in some places, and it's all the same ore as we had in Kaz Algar, which is good. I don't want like a new thing that I have to collect separately from everything else, so I can do my mining elsewhere and still be relevant for this patch and fly around and get it. But like, a lot of the ores like in the sewers, you have to click a sewer hatch and then you jump down a thing and then you're in this little interior. You mine one node, then you have to click a ladder to get out. Like, again, I'm in this super fast car, but I'm stopping every 40 yards trying to figure out like where vertically this mining node is and then collect it. Like, I don't know, man. Like that stuff just kind of makes me not want to, go super deep into the zone, but I think it's okay. Like, I'm a bit of a quest completionist, so I'll make sure that I stay on top of all that stuff. World quests seem to be on a more frequent roll than in the rest of Kaz Algar, but it's early days yet, so we'll see. Like, I think stuff is rolling up for 3 days, like almost every day. So, which is cool because it gives you a chance to kind of get that more rep and just, do some more stuff in the zone, do the races or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, overall, like I've enjoyed my time in this week. I went in and I had some stuff to collect for the All That Kaz achievement for like collecting the lore items in Kaz Algar. I did that, got my campfire screen. I did the achievement in Undermine, Going Goblin mode, which it's basically like do the 10 rares or rare encounters, and there's a couple other things to collect or other little things to do in the zone. That unlocks the Galagio campsite. So I got those 2 done. That was cool to have, and I have some variety there.
Look at you with your new objectives to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. I figured like this is a perfect week to knock that out, right? Because like I don't have raid, I don't have dungeons, so these are like relatively simple things to do, and then you get a cool permanent unlock on your account.
Yeah.
Man, one thing that's really cool about the new campsites is the Onaran one and the Kaz Algar one, the Freywold Village. They have dynamic time of day. So if it's like daytime outside your window, it's daytime on your login screen, and it's dusk, it's nighttime, whatever. So that's a pretty neat feature in the campsite.
That's very cool. I actually didn't know that at all. This week has been a great week. I mean, obviously I've been so busy, I've been able to take advantage of it very much, but this is a great week for a lot of folks to get that stuff knocked out. So the disappointing thing for this week for me was, and I don't know how this snuck up on me, but it was the realization that the vault and the vault rewards and all the Mythic Plus rewards and everything else can no longer be upgraded at all. Like, they're all season 1. You get the stuff, out of your vault, and it comes out at whatever eye level 623, whatever eye level it comes out at, right? And now cannot be upgraded, and you can do nothing with it. And it was like, Oh man, like there's literally like a week where just all gear is dead. Like this is not great.
They did sort of put out a post like apologizing for that. It's like it's just a fundamental problem with the design of the upgrade system because they have to switch the data over to be season 2. Yeah, I don't know. Like the gap week between seasons is great and I don't want it to go away, but it also leads to a ton of confusion and there's some mechanical weirdness with certain parts of it.
Yeah. So
I think like it's a good thing to just put yourself in the mindset of like week before patch is the last week of the season and whatever else happens after that happens. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah. And as a consequence of that, which I thought was kind of funny, is a bunch of people got onto this very quickly. You can earn the new weathered crests currently, and the new weathered crests can be used to craft 629 gear because you can use 30 weathered crests over at the enchanting person to buy the token you need to craft a 629 piece. So a lot of people are now doing that instead. And what I thought was hilarious is something that I have not done in a long time, which is fly through those glowy little orbs that are floating all over the place. Each orb gives a weathered crest. So if you fly through 30 of those, you've just earned a 629 piece of crafted gear, which doesn't require a spark. You just literally use it with like normal, crafted blue gear that you use. You can turn that into a 629 piece. So like I made my priest a 629 weapon. I made my Death Knight 2 629 one-handers. I just worked my way through alts, getting them a bunch of 629 weapons. Because I was like, well, while I'm out flying around doing all of my profession grinding that I need to do every week, I'm just going to fly through all these orbs. And so I just ended up with a whole bunch of weathered crests that I could then use to create weapons and whatnot for those characters. So I thought that was very funny to me that it came out that way. But yeah, it's certainly something folks can get on and have fun with if they're looking to upgrade stuff for their alts or for their main. I mean, you can craft whatever you want when it comes to those pieces. They every single slot on your character, neck, rings, all of it can have a 629 piece if you had enough. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to hit the cap on weathered crest this week, but I'm saying if you have weak spots in your gear, you can fill those out with 629 craftables if you're looking for it. The weathered crest cap is 90 for this week, so you can craft 3. That's your limit. That's all you can do. But if you're making a staff, you don't have to make 2 one-handers. That's obviously going to save you some weathered crest cap stuff. So think about that with your 2-handers. But yeah, that was a weird, enlightening surprise for me, was figuring out that you could just fly around and do that and get that done for your characters as well. The profession stuff to me is still exactly the same. Obviously, there's new contracts for people to grab. So scribes out there are trying to grind renown to be able to buy the contract, to be able to make the contract so you can grind more renown. That's something that's out there right now for folks. But outside of that, there isn't anything super new profession-wise this week that you need to I need to get on for this particular reason. So that's good in general. I wouldn't say that I found that they upped any chances of anything happening. It still took me a very long time to get all my treasures on my priest. And it took me a reasonable amount of time to actually get my skill ups for mining as well. And I found that with the resurgence of more players coming back, all of the greens and blues on the auction house have climbed in price, which I thought was unfortunate because I was really enjoying when you could get blues for 90 gold off the auction house on a regular basis so that you could get your enchanting skill ups. And now I'm like, I'll just let that build up until they get cheap again, and then I'll get all of them at the same time, because that's how enchanting works. You can just disenchant to your heart's content until you've caught up on all of your knowledge. So, but I'm getting close, man. There's a couple professions where I think I'm 20 or 30 points away from just being done and not having to do any of that anymore. And I recognize that's an expansion based thing, so I've tried to lay off on the rants about getting caught up.
It'll just be done, and then you're done. It's a good feeling, and you will hit that with tunes this season. Like that's
I think I'll hit with all of my tunes this season.
Which is awesome. Yeah, and then you just benefit from it. You have all that stuff you can do for the rest of the expansion.
Yeah. So I guess at this point, character wise, I was waiting for Darkmoon Faire to launch, which is today, so you can pick up your rep bonus. We'll talk about that obviously and what's going on this week. And then I'm going to go around and do all of the world quests that are important to that zone. I think there's 3 of them up for me right now. And then I'm going to do side questing. And then we're going to see, I guess, if there's anything else there that I want to try and do for gaining more rep I've held off on turning in my weeklies that give rep tokens because a few of them actually you can choose Undermine rep as the reward. So it's like if you ran, I think it was Arakara this week that we're currently in. You can get yourself 1,500. I think is what it was. It wasn't 25. It was 15 for Undermine, and so that's an extra 150 rep that I just get right off that for waiting on Dark Moon Fair. So that made sense to me. But yeah,
true. They didn't include it in the World Quest weekly this week, which
they didn't.
I speculated that they wouldn't, and they didn't. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's to be expected, I guess. Did you check out the new dungeon or either the new delves at all?
I did. I checked out one of the new delves. The delve I went into, I don't remember off the top of my head the name of it, but it was the one that you're going through basically a factory and you had to use robots to short circuit the lightning traps that are in there. It was pretty cool. It was very fast to get through, which I liked a lot. I was able to essentially skip a bulk of it, which surprised me, where I just jumped over a railing and then down to another area and was able to essentially fight a boss at that point and finished it. So that was very cool, and I got some achievements for gathering all the treasures and things like that inside of it. I definitely am still getting comfortable with new Boomkin things. It didn't change so much that I'm like, whoa, this is like a totally new class, but it changed enough that I'm like, oh yeah, I have these innate abilities now because we have more points that we can spend because they move things around and that there's things are hitting a bit harder, which feels good. So like it's all good changes. And I certainly want some more good changes for Boomkin, but it is something that I was still getting a handle on as far as putting together a build for it and making sure the build had everything I wanted in it, which was great. So we have more utility now as Boomies because they freed up some points in our tree. So I would be surprised to see Boomies inside any Mythic Plus situation that did not have a Dispel kind of thing, right? Like they should at this point be able to afford to have it.
Right, that's kind of like a druid thing too, right? Like they sort of the multi-spec master or whatever. They borrow stuff from the other specs when they're in one spec or whatever. So like I think that, and having that utility is always cool because it gives you more interactivity, right? More ways to solve problems inside content, which is just fun as a player. That's what we like to have.
Yeah, one of the other things that Boomies have is a new ability in their class tree that lets them put essentially symbiosis on another character, and it's not the same as the old symbiosis, but it's one where as you heal as a Boomkin or any druid, because it's inside the druid class tree, as you heal, that other target heals, and the amount that you heal that other target for also heals you, which is kind of a weird. Like you picture like a bear tank using frenzied regen with this, right? Where like they throw that on their co-tank, and every time you hit frenzied regen, you are healing, plus you're healing your co-tank, plus the healing that's going on your co-tank is also healing you for a little bit more as well. Like it's an interesting effect that happens there. So it's kind of a cool play on abilities there. So I don't know. I think overall I'm excited about Boomy coming into this tier, and you'll notice I haven't talked a lot about Og because Og just kind of it really did with those last pass of nerfs die off a lot. And from what I've talked to other people about, they're like, look, it was coming for a long time. It was way too strong inside Dragonflight. It's been way too strong inside this expansion. So this has been coming for a while. The Og changes that need to come in, and I guess for me, I wish that I had the opportunity to do a raid tier before it was, I recognize it's my fault for not getting into it earlier and trying it out and whatnot, but it's unfortunate that they've put Og into a position where it does not seem as though a lot of teams are going to be using them at the high mythic level at the moment, and we'll have to see what comes of that, because there's something very unique and cool about that class, and I think it's unfortunate if it essentially the only one of its kind is now not playable inside of Mythic content because there's just better things. But there's a lot of class tuning that happened, and we'll chat about that a bit later too.
Yeah, I mean, that was always kind of my concern with them bringing in a support class, even before Augvoker existed, right? When people were asking for bards, it's like, well, we don't have anything else that does this, so it either has to be like so good that you need to have one, or it's going to be pointless. And like it's been so good that you need to have one for most of its existence, and now it's looking like it might be moving the dial towards pointless this season, but we'll see. I mean, it's early days, and like they don't want anything to be totally irrelevant, so we got to be patient there. I mean, I only did the new dungeon on follower. I just wanted to see what it looked like, so I did it with my rogue buddy, and we just ran through it.
Nice.
It's kind of I was like, this is cool, but kind of low effort here. They're just reusing all the exterior in the other zone, but like then there is like an interior section at the end, which looks pretty cool. I did both of the new delves on +11. I really liked Side Street Sluice is the one that's in Undermine, and that one's pretty cool. But Excavation Site 9, which is in Ringing Deeps, I thought was awesome. It's like
yeah, I didn't do that one. That's the one I didn't do.
Yeah, it's like this interior where it's like there's like all this Titany stuff that's like ruined by like Black Empire sludge. It's like the old gods won this round or something in there. There's really cool interior space, and I thought the tuning on 11 felt great actually on those two. It felt a lot better than pre-patch. So if that's sort of the tuning goal for the end of season 2, like obviously I'm in super high gear coming out of season 1.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like a season 1 delve, but like if this is the idea, if it lands here, I think it feels a lot better. So I'm excited to see how that shapes up as we go through this season. And I thought the interior spaces were really cool. In terms of like, I haven't played Brewmaster since patch. I did right before patch. I went in and did Zekvir ? On the Brewmaster just to see what happened.
Yeah,
and I got it pretty quick, even in low gear. But Brewmaster has like every tool you could possibly need. You touch a Death the Ad, you can easily move around the space. You can Tiger's Lust off the snare, and So plus I already knew what I was doing. But it was fun to do it again. I actually thought the fight was pretty cool. And on the Warrior, all the Theorycraft nerds are saying play Colossus this season, which like I didn't play Colossus like at all in season 1, and I didn't really want. It's really not my vibe, and I don't want to play it. But considering the overall class changes, which there's a fair amount of prot and Warrior changes for this patch, and some of the buffs they brought in for Colossus, so I was like, well, let me give it a shot. So I'm messing around with it. I have a whole bunch of builds that I'm kind of just rotating through now between Colossus and Mountain Thane just to experiment. So I'm gonna go into the season. I'll try some Colossus and see. I think the big thing is it's going to be, obviously we had the whole thing about, Warrior generates too much rage. It's too active of a play style. We're going to bring the APM down. I think Colossus has a little bit more of that on-demand rage gen. So I think that's why they're kind of shifting people towards that, because it's like, okay, you'll get more of your rage back playing this style. Plus you can concentrate your burst, right? Like Thane just shoots lightning everywhere and it hits what it hits, and that's cool. But Colossus is more like, okay, now I've built up my big buff stacks. I hit my big nuke and I nuke stuff when I want to, which is good if you can take advantage of that. I'm more of a just shoot lightning everywhere player. Like if anything good's happening, then I'll just consider myself lucky, right? Like, if you leave it up to me to dial in the exact moment at the button, that's not as good for me. So I might end up going back to Thane, but I also like new patch, new play style, right? Like just playing around with new stuff. So that's I'm trying to keep an open mind. Thane is really more my vibe, but I'm going to check Colossus out over the next couple weeks, and we'll see how we're doing.
Yeah, that's the other thing I like about this week, this downtime week, is people start playing around a lot more with different things in their build because they have the time, right? And we're currently in a week where if you did Mythic Plus this week, none of the drops are upgradable. If you did Mythic Plus this week, none of your Vault next week will be, new and special and crazy. And your Keystone, regardless of what you do, will be a 2 next week. So there's no like big, okay, I got to push or figure this out. Or I remember in Shadowlands, it was like, you got to try and get like a 15 done.
15s too. We got to do 15s this week. Yeah,
to be able to
key's going to decay.
Exactly, right? So your key's going to decay, and then you're going to have a higher key next week. So you had to like try and line that up. And we didn't have the upgrade stuff going on. So you weren't worried about whether you're going to get a low tier version of whatever it is you're using that you can't upgrade because it's a previous season. Like that wasn't a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of hiccups that have been added with the upgrade system in this, and I'd be curious to see how they fix that or encourage players to keep doing content during the down week. I think the down weeks are wonderful. I just wish that they got little fixes to do here and there to make it actually work really well. But let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft, and we'll chat about that. All right, this week is the Pet Battle bonus event, and because Jason and I commented about it so much, I guess they also, made sure that it's always accompanied by another event, because it's not for everybody. So it's Pet Battle bonus event, and it's the Battleground bonus event at the same time. The Sign of the Critter buff is up, increasing the gains from pet battles by 100% experience. And you can win 5 PvP pet battles, get a ultimate pet battle training stone, which instantly levels any pet to level 25. And of course, the sign of battle is up, increasing your honor gains from battleground objectives and wins, increasing them by 50%, as well as there's a quest to win 4 random battle rounds for some marks of honor and conquest. Outside of that, we have the choose 1 week that we are currently in, where you get to choose one of the things that you're looking to do. So this will be completing some objectives. We don't know what the new ones will necessarily be, so I don't want to list them all off, because it previously was Theater Troop, Severed Threads Pact, Awakening the Machine, a particular dungeon on normal or higher, Snuffling, World Quests. Like, it'd be like something in there, but I get the vibe. There's, we already know that there was a choose one for completing quests inside of the new zone. So I'm curious what else there's going to be for that sort of thing that we're going to be heading into. So keep that in mind as well. The Undermine weeklies, these are the new weeklies for you to pay attention to, the ones that you'll have to go to the hotel to pick up. They have the side gig quests, which are in Slam Central Station. These are the ones where when you come down on the big rocket sled, you're in Slam Central Station. There's 2 other rocket sleds. One's on your left and right. When you're going to the one on your right, this is as you're leaving Slam Central Station. I keep wanting to say Grand, but it's not. It's Slam. This is the one that took you up into Battle for Azeroth, like way back content to like figure out what the goblins are up to over there and what Gallywix is really trying to do. And you got like spy birds flying around and you have to like capture a spy bird and reprogram it and spy on things and lots of really cool stuff like that. So I get the sense, and obviously this is the first week we're seeing it, I get the sense that this is something where it's going to bounce back and forth between those 2 areas. So, there'll be the rocket sled on the right and the rocket sled on the left. And depending on which one you're taking, you'll end up with different side quests each week that they'll rotate back and forth. But I don't know. That's a guess at things. But for this week, yeah, you're heading back to the old BFA content to do a bunch of fun stuff out there.
Like, I wouldn't be mad if we go to Zuldazar every week, but because I really did love those BFA zones.
I love the BFA zones.
Like, I can only assume that, there's going to be some kind of rotation here where you're working for different cartels and different locales. So, but, we have 1 week to go by so far on live. Yep. You'll see, like, blue exclamation points on your map. So look for those. And then there's some, some questing associated with that. It's a weekly, so it's like a 7-day where you can do it anytime you want to during the reset week and get your rep and all that stuff.
We also don't know how long these weeklies stick around. If they're similar to the other weeklies where like you have 3 weeks or there's a 2-week rotation or whatever, that kind of idea that we have with the other weeklies. So we'll see. It might be the reason why there's 2 rocket sled spaces is because they're valid for 2 weeks at a time. Like, we don't know how that's going to work. So we'll have to see going forward, but there is the potential that like, the right rocket sled is active this week and it has, XYZ mission for you to go do. And then the other one will be active next week and it has ABC mission for you to go do while XYZ is still available. We don't know. We'll wait and see, but
it's too early in the season. Yeah. So it's like, I will say like the quest this week had 7-day durations.
Yeah.
So but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a weekly rotation for these. It might just be like, there's a week on, week off thing.
We'll see.
Too early to tell, but don't miss them because it is a fair bit of, rep and stuff as we're working our way up the renown thing.
Yeah, yeah. I held off on turning them in so I can have my Darkmead Fair buff. That was one of the things I was doing. Okay. The other thing we have is in the Incontinental Hotel in the center of the new zone in Undermine. You can pick up 3 different weeklies that are out there. One is Many Jobs Handle It, which is complete 10 jobs for shipping and handling, which is when you get into your car for your drive and you're driving around and you hit 5 because you're trying to get out of your vehicle, which is 6, and you hit 5 by accident, and suddenly a goblin starts talking to you over the radio about how you're her favorite and you got to go and do some jobs and you're on the clock now. So you get back into your car, so you're going to be driving around doing these 10 jobs. That's what happened to me like 4 times. That's all I'm saying. So if you press 5 when you're inside your drive, you'll activate shipping and handling mode, which means you'll be given tasks around Undermine to complete, and you can complete 10 of them in a row to then be given the reward of a break, is what you're given, a mandatory break that you have to take. But if you just do 10 of these in general, you'll complete Many Jobs Handle It. That's one of the quests you can turn in. Reputation, tokens, bunch of fun stuff out of that. So be sure you're knocking that one out. The Urge to Surge. This is the surge pricing event, which happens every hour. which will involve needing to do tasks during the surge pricing event. Jason, you want to talk about the surge pricing event at all?
Yeah, it's similar to I can't remember what it was called, but it was stuff that we had in Dragonflight, the outside of Thaldraszus, right, where you had the time warped incursion thing.
Yep.
I can't remember what the event was called, but it would start at the top of every hour, and a lot of the public events work this way in Dragonflight. But it would start, and then there's a bar to fill up, and then everybody in the zone, they do little little tasks that contribute to the bar. The bar fills up, and you get graduating reward caches. I guess really like the thing it's most similar to is Theater Troupe, right?
Yep.
It's
Similar.
It's the same. That's like a current thing that we're doing that this is similar to. I'm not exactly sure the timing on this, so I don't know how often it starts, but like you'll just be driving around, in Undermine, and you'll see the bar pop up at the top of the screen. Then you can opt into shipping and handling, and now you are participating in surge pricing. And as you complete tasks, it'll fill up that bar. You'll hit those thresholds where you get the reward caches. And if you do that once during the week, if you're on this quest from Smacks, then you'll complete that weekly quest. I mean, granted, there may be different ones or something. We don't know for sure that this is up every single week and it's the same thing, but this is the way it was this week. So
yeah,
we can assume that it'll return in the future as a weekly. So yeah, just, keep an eye on that bar at the top of your screen, or if you have it moved somewhere else, just be aware that is what that means. That's how that works. There's no like NPC to go check in with or whatever to opt into the event or start the event. There's no central location in the zone where it takes place. It's just, okay, time to opt into shipping and handling. And I mean, you can kind of like overlap it, right? You could be doing your 10 shipping and handling jobs during surge pricing, and you're kind of getting, you're double dipping a little bit there. So, I kind of did it without thinking about it. I kind of unlocked the stuff in the city, picked up my weeklies, and I just started driving around doing stuff. And before I knew it, it was just done. So,
yeah. So the reason why I know when surge pricing happens is because one of the other features they added with this is the handy extra tab inside of your map. So if you pop your map open, there's now 3 tabs on the right side. One of them's like a legend, which is the bottom one. But the second one is for events. And so if you're inside the zone and you click on that tab, you will see what events are coming up, and it's every hour is the nice thing about that. So you can just see, hey, next surge pricing is, in 20 minutes or whatever it is, right? You can see it there, which I think is kind of neat to do. And so I like that tab. It's a handy tab. It's something that Dragonflight definitely needed. Dragonflight needed to also then attach what patch it was from, or some sort of item level attached to it, so you could know whether it was relevant content or not. But I'm glad they've moved in this direction because it's going to be very helpful for a lot of players. Okay.
It's just it's such less of a lift, right? Because with a lot of these other events, it's like, okay, it's super dependent on, am I in the right place at the right time, whatever. This is just you're in the zone. You just start, you just start it. You don't have to go to a place.
Right.
And I don't know, man, we have a hotfix note about, they did buff some of the rewards from this stuff, but you're getting some resonance crystals, you're getting a handful of low level crests.
This is not stones. Yep.
Yeah, this is not do this because it has some major power impact on your character. It's it's flavor, it's a thing to do. It's a multiplayer game, right? So it's a thing that you're participating with other players. It's one of the lower impact ways that we've seen them do something like this, because you can do it without really even encountering any other players and still get credit towards your weeklies or whatever.
Yeah. All right. The last one is reduce, reuse, resell. This is for scrapping 3 different areas. And so you basically on your map will have a garbage can that appears while you're down in the zone. If you go there, you can then engage if it hasn't been started yet, or you can join in on scrapping a pile of scrap. And this is again similar to theater event, where the more you contribute, the more everyone contributes, it fills up a bar, and there's different sort of tiers of that bar, and based off of where you get the tiers of that bar up to 500 points, it will then give you better rewards. There's a 200 marker and then a 500 marker for being able to, 250 marker and a 500 marker for being able to get better rewards. So if you're under 250, between 250 and 500, or at 500, you get different rewards. And in general, it's interesting. I mean, it definitely is affected based off the amount of people engaged. So if you're by yourself, you'll have to deal with occasionally while you're shoveling a bunch of scrap, 3 different little ads will spawn, and you sort of beat them up, and you got to dodge some swirlies and sort of engage with things like that. When you get 15 or 20 people around one of these things, it's here's 40 ads, and here's, you're like, holy geez. So a lot of things start happening off of the scaling with that, and it becomes a bit more of an event that you're sort of paying attention to. I'll say it's very hard to get a high score when you have low people, is the other thing that's noticeable, because while some people deal with the mechanics, other people can just keep shoveling, which is actually a really nice thing about having a larger group of people around these. Is if you have people who are just like, I'm just going to keep shoveling, you guys deal with the ads, and other people actually are dealing with the ads, then you can actually get that reward a little bit more guaranteed, which is nice. So I always volunteer to be the person who pulls off and just DPSs everything, and I watch other people start, just digging away, which is fine.
Yeah, if you get targeted with something, you can't dig. Like, you can't even dig. It's not like you can dig, but you keep getting interrupted. It's like you can't start digging. So, once you're targeted with something or whatever, then you got to do it.
Exactly.
It's actually really similar to, oh man, what did they call it in Dragonflight? It's like the replacement for archaeology. It was the event that happened where you're kind of digging up the dragon bones. And, that was designed for kind of a lot more players, and it was a longer thing than this, but it's very similar in terms of like, okay, you're like focused on this pile and you're digging up this pile to get as much stuff out of it as you can until you get a task sent to you. And like in this, you don't get a task. It's just like some stuff spawned, beat it up, or like click these crawler mines and kick them away from the thing that you're scrapping. So it's a lot more bite-sized, it's like that the archaeology event in Azure Span was like, I don't know, like a 10-minute process or whatever, 8-minute process. This is quick. It's just here, click this, fill it up. What's the time limit on it? 5 minutes, but I don't think I've even seen one go that long. Like, so yeah, it's a lot. Again, I think it's sort of the order of the day here with these outdoor events is just low impact. It's there, go do it if you want to. You can get some currencies. There's a weekly that kind of puts a wrapper around it to sweeten the deal, give you some little outdoor multiplayer texture. There's not a lot of technique to it. You just roll up and click on stuff.
Exactly. All right. Outside of that, that's kind of like what's new in the main zone for you to go and check out and Undermine. Outside of that, we still have, our normal world events of like you can go out and do Theater Troop and the special assignments and Awakening the Machine. Awakening the Machine actually got a hot fix. Another TSZ recommend came true, which was, hey, there's a way to skip all the downtime. You can actually set it up so that you can just literally have wave after wave after wave after wave that you're dealing with, as opposed to having to like wait 15, 20 seconds between waves, and it kind of chews out another 10 to 15 minutes of your life over the span of doing it. So that was great. I'm glad they added that in. Spreading the light, obviously just clicking on the little light pyres that are there, as long as you have the currency to do so. Severed Threads Pact still exists, which at this point I just don't complete. I basically I commit myself to the one that lets me gather 30% faster, and then I just don't do quests there. So I just always have that buff up and never have to refresh it, which I think is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I've been on the same one there for about a month and a half at this point. Yeah. I have no business left there really, but I do like gathering fast in Kaz Algar. I'll tell
exactly.
you that.
Yes.
I don't think it doesn't work in Undermine, right? But like it works in Kaz Algar, and like I said, gathering in Undermine kind of sucks. I'm not a fan at the moment, so I'll go fly around Halifal and get my weekly stuff.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go to Undermine to gather, and unless they add like some sort of crazy machine robot that like digs into a side of a cliff and exposes a bunch of mining nodes every X period of time for people who are mining, or like something like that.
Yeah. Or like put more stuff in the sewer. So you get in the sewer and there's like 4 nodes down there instead of 1. Like,
yeah, something. It's a little weird at the moment to have gathering stuff there. I remember noticing that the new island they gave us for Circe Circlet and all that did not have any gathering nodes on it at all. And so I kind of expected Undermine to not have any gathering nodes at all. And so I was like at the Incontinental Hotel and was like, oh, dude, there's like an herb just sitting next to the doorway for some reason growing out of metal. I guess I'll just herb that. That was my experience with gathering in Undermine so far. But there wasn't enough nodes where I was like, dude, this is great. There's so many nodes. I'm totally going to come here to mine. I still have my regular loops that I do that I like for certain herbs and certain ores, and those work really well. And that's kind of where the gathering stuff is for me. I do think it'd be neat if they had something inside Undermine where, because goblins are so greedy and, burrowing so deep kind of idea, that they had something for miners where it was like, yeah, like every, 3 hours or something, a big robot could be activated by someone that dug into a cliff face and there was like 10 mining nodes behind that cliff face or something would be kind of neat to see. So that you
like
could,
I knew there was going to be mining and undermine because it's undermine, and it's like there's no way goblins don't have mining nodes, but it's like it sucks mining there because the city has these like this verticality, but you can't fly, so sometimes you got to go like around the block to get up to it, and anyway, like the point is, if you like gathering and you're playing the new patch, go get your severed threads with the widow and don't complete it and do your weekly gathering in Khazalgar zones, not in Undermine. I think that seems to be the play right now.
The only other thing that I think would work along Goblin theme would be if the rocket sleds, the one that wasn't active, took you to like a high population herb or mining area, would be kind of neat. If it like took you up into a cavernous cave that was this area that just had, again, like I said, like every X period of time you could go up and it would take you to an instanced area that's just a cave full of mining nodes and herbing nodes or whatever it is, right? Like that would be kind of neat to see. Like that to me would be cool because it just makes sense from a Goblin theme that they would be trying to seek out those sorts of things. And maybe you pay to get there. Maybe there's some sort of like currency exchange or, you know, a gold cost or something to go into this area.
Yeah. I mean, time is money, friend. Yeah, Dragonflight had those caves that like you would open with an item or whatever, and then they usually had a couple nodes in them or something. Yeah, yeah, dude. If this just put more stuff in the sewers, just pump up the volume a little bit because now it's like it's not worth the time to stop. Just go somewhere else and do it.
Like you said, time is money, friend. Exactly. All right. As far as PvP goes, the PvP brawl is cooking impossible. That's right. Nomi is back in the Valley of the Four Winds for this brawl in the kitchen. And basically this means you queue in, it's you, Alliance against Horde or team against team, depending on what mercenary mode is doing at the time. And basically your team is out there trying to gather as many cooking ingredients as possible to throw into your pot so that Nomi can finish making the meal for everybody. And the opponent's team is doing the exact same thing with some sort of weird Bizarro Nomi that's happening there. And basically you end up with whoever does it first wins. And you can mess around with the other team when they're trying to turn in their ingredients because there's no barrier between you. So you can certainly mess around with people as they're trying to gather ingredients. You can mess around and try to like goaltend at their pot to make sure ingredients don't go in. You can steal your opponent's ingredients and put them into your pot. So there's it's a very fun brawl. This is very brawly, and it's one of my favorite ones to advertise just because Valley of the Four Winds is really pretty. I like going back to that zone whenever we can. So this is, I mean, it's definitely one that I want a campsite for. Give me a Valley of the Four Winds campsite. I'm down. Make it like, you know, somewhere near my farm. I'd be good with that. Like it's, you know,
just make it the farm for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome brawl. I think this is the best one really. I mean, Comp Stomp's really good too, but that's because of its efficiency. This is like a fun PvP mode to play. It's fun to disrupt the other team. You know, there's a PvE element of like killing stuff to collect ingredients. And so, you know, you need people doing different jobs in order to succeed at it. And that's pretty fun. So
yeah,
I dig it. I dig the theming. Nomi's one of the ultimate, you know, villains of the WoW universe.
The burnt food, man. The burnt food.
I'm fine with Nomi. I'm okay with him. You know, we're cool, but people really hated Nomi back in Legion, and I kind of understand why. You were just dumping ingredients into nothing. But so like,
yeah.
It's fun whenever they bring Nomi back for anything because he's got a reputation, you know. But cool brawl might be tough to fit into your schedule this week because season roll, you know, there's a lot of stuff people are going to want to do that brawl doesn't really contribute to significantly. But if you're brawling, then it's a good one to do for sure.
Yeah. The other thing we got coming up this week is the Gobfather, the new world boss, dropping 642 eye level pieces. These are, you know, highly going to be big for folks, just guaranteed upgrade, right? No one has a 642 piece other than your Cersei Circlet. So, you know, we have a plate chest and feet, mail legs and feet, leather chest and waist, cloth legs and feet, and a crit verse neck. So any of those are probably pretty good for most folks. Maybe the neck is kind of the most iffy of those. But these will all be catalyzable too, which will be big for folks who are trying to get tier set stuff rolling. So definitely be sure checking that out. If there's any reason you're still trying to get key fragments or something like that for your Titan disc fragments, you can go back and do the old world boss too. That's Shirai the Atrocity, the big monstrosity in Hallowfall. That's going to be up as well in case you're still, I don't know, working on something there, getting Mog or something like that. But it's only 603, so just keep that in mind. Mythic Plus affixes for this upcoming week, provided everything stays the same on rotation. we're looking at
we're making a bit of a leap here, but we don't know for sure what it's going to be. We are moving into new rotation, but this is our best guess.
At level 4, right? Remember, they've changed where some things happen now. So at level 4 Keystones, we will see Ascendant kicking off, which is 10 orbs appear every minute in combat that must be interrupted, purged, knocked, or crowd controlled. And basically, you get yourself a buff there for movement speed and haste for players if you are taking care of that. If you don't, obviously the enemies get a buff, which is not good. So you want to prevent them from getting it. So that's Ascendant. Now, there's a chance, for whatever weird reason, that they reset it just so that everyone gets to experience Pulsar first week. So I'm also just going to talk about what Pulsar does, but it's according to rotation, it's going to be Ascendant. So I'm just keep that in mind. That's the caveat before I talk about Pulsar. This isn't necessarily seeing Pulsar this week, but Pulsar is the new one. It's coming in. It's replacing Oblivion. So Oblivion's gone, right? That's poof. And they kept the same reward bonus, okay? So Pulsar, when you do it correctly, does still give you Mastery and Leech. That is still the reward for doing it. It does give you 4% because there's fewer things that you interact with to make this happen. So you end up with supposedly 20% Mastery and 10% Leech if you get everything done properly. How this works: while in combat, Xal'atath summons Pulsars, which orbit players. Pulsars are giant purple orbs the size of your character that have a beam that connect to you, that rotate around you like some sort of weird giant like mace that you're swinging around your character, basically. And after 15 seconds, the Pulsar releases its energy to grant creatures the gift, or Xal'atath's gift, which increases their damage done by 10% and reduces their damage taken by 20%, and it stacks. So this is the, hey, if you don't take care of these properly, the thing you're fighting will take 100% less damage because there's 5 of these, right? Keep that in mind. And they'll do 50% more damage. Very bad. However, what you're supposed to do is when players come into contact with these Pulsars, it empowers the players. So in other words, you'll see these giant purple orbs with a purple chain that connects to your character start spinning around people's characters. Just run into them. Now, when you run into them, there is a damage explosion that happens. So I'm a little nervous about how the tuning is going to work out on this and whether or not teams are going to one-shot themselves or kill their friends while they are running around gathering these Pulsars. I don't know why they chose to put a damage pulse on this, but there was. So we'll see if that sticks around or whether it doesn't make it into the actual live iteration. But if it does, then yeah, just be aware you're going to take a larger hit of damage, but you're going to get a buff to your Mastery and your Leech, which means you should get, well, your healer should be able to heal a lot harder, and all the damage you're dealing should be healing you as well with the Leech. So you should recover pretty quickly, and that buff's going to last 30 seconds, which is going to be big. So yeah, in general, this is a good replacement for Oblivion, but it's yet to be practiced and seen whether or not this is a really great replacement or a replacement where you're like, okay, this is better than that, but I don't know if this is that much better than that. So we'll see how that feels.
Right. I think it's a clear upgrade, but considering the floor that we're upgrading from, it doesn't say much about the ceiling for this one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oblivion was so bad compared to the rest of the pool, in my opinion, having done a lot of keys in season 1. It was just like, this stinks. Pulsar should be better, so we'll see once it goes live.
Yeah.
We'll get a little, but the good thing is it's going to be around player position instead of just anywhere from the outside of the arena.
Yeah. So, okay. There's a couple more things. At level 7 Keystones, we'll have Tyrannical kick in next week, which means bosses have more health and deal increased damage. At 10, we'll have Fortified kick in alongside Tyrannical, so you got both. And then when we hit 12s, that's where we actually get Guile back, where the deaths cost 3 times as much. There's another, actual increase where it increases the health of enemies by health and damage by 12% or something like that. There's another increase that happens at 12. Obviously, that scales as you go higher than 12, so it's not like saying a percentage is kind of just a fictional number that's out there, but it will be a jump as far as that goes. So I just wanted to warn people, if you're going to be pushing up to 12s or something, you're going to be feeling it really hard, because that death thing is what a lot of people hated at 7s, and so it now lives at 12s, which means for the bulk of players out there who are going to be running 10s next week as their big push number, I think probably the majority of players will probably run like 4s or 5s or 6s, somewhere in that range. But if you're someone who's pushing for 10s, you're not dealing with that triple death timer, so that's a big deal for all of that. So
yeah, that's huge, especially early season when you're trying to get those thresholds, because that was killer, man.
It was
in some dungeons.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like a lot, but you're going to make the most mistakes early in the season. You're going to have the most deaths, which means that penalty is going to be the worst. So moving that up to 12, I think is great. If we have to have it, then put it above 12.
Yep.
One cool thing I want to point out about Guile this season that's new, like, yes, it removes the bargains, so you no longer have the Xal'atath affix to play around, and which also means you don't receive the buff from it. But also, at level 12, it actually does not kick in bonus health and damage scaling on enemies, which it did in Season 1. So, like, in Season 1, plus 12 was way harder than plus 11. In Season 2, level 12 will be plus 1 scaling harder than plus 11 and will remove the Xal'atath buffs, which in some way comes out in a wash because you have to play around them, but you don't get the benefit. But since you don't have that increase, that bonus scaling from 11 to 12, it should make it quite a bit easier. But then the bonus scaling kicks in above 12, so 13, 14, etc. You're getting that extra 12% per rank. So just keep that in mind. A bit of a different. They're trying to. I think what they're trying to do this season is get people comfortably up into 9s, 10s to get your myth track rewards and stuff, and then for the more trying to just the people who are at the top end of that system and not going higher, just kind of give them a nudge to get them into 12s. We get the quality of life around the keys not decaying below 12 if you time all 12. So. Definitely, a big shift in the structure, and the cool thing this week is that you got +2, +3 with nothing. They're just the dungeons with a timer, so you can get in there, start learning how the dungeons work, check out the polls, check out the bosses, really get a feel for it before you start layering on this other stuff. And then, like, if it is Ascendant is not too hard to play around, and it's the same thing as it was last season, so we already know how to do it. So then you're going all the way up to +6 before you even get that bonus scaling from Tyrannical coming in. So, I think it should be really gentle to get into the system this week, start learning the dungeons and kind of getting a feel for the landscape in Mythic Plus Season 2. I like what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I think they're heading in a good direction for that, so we'll see how all this feels. All right, Kalimdor Cup is back. It's live through March 10th. And this means that players for the next week can hop into races in Winterspring, Mount Hyjal, Felwood, Ashenvale, Ashara, Durotar, Southern Barrens, Thousand Needles, Desolus, Feralus, Ungoro, Silithus, and Uldum to be able to earn themselves some badges, which they can take to purchase rewards from vendors around there, like different looks for their drakes. There's some transmog that's out there. There's obviously the achievement you can earn for getting gold, for doing getting the Kalimdor Racer, for completing all these on gold. So certainly glad to see this back. I know a lot of people who didn't take advantage of it. I was one of them. When the first time around, I only did some of these. I didn't do all of them. So looking forward to hopefully finding some time over the next week to get in there right. and do this.
Why did this start like the week?
I don't know, man.
Patch? Like,
I don't know.
We've had such low key WoW stuff for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I went and checked the vendor. I do not believe there's anything new.
Okay.
So if you maxed out Kalimdor Cup last time it was around, if you want to go do the races because you think they're cool, then you can do that. If you didn't do it last time, you don't have a ton of stuff to catch up on because, like, I went to the vendor and there was literally nothing to buy except rep tokens for Dragonflight rep.
Right.
So I don't believe they've added anything new. The achievements are the achievements. You know what I mean? So if you did it before, you're done. Don't worry about it. If you haven't done it before, I think it's worth doing. I think it's cool. I think it's just cool to go to the zones and try to challenge yourself against the races, but the timing is pretty terrible here. If you want to be doing Season 2 War Within stuff, not racing holiday stuff, probably.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, Darkmoon Faire is also live. It's going to be live until the 8th, which means we do have another whole reset where you can earn some additional reputation towards that new faction and renown. So be sure you're taking advantage of that. Also, for those profession hounds out there like myself, be sure you're getting all your extra skill ups for all those professions that are happening. For those who really want really good water for all this Mythic Plus that you're about to be running through, you can get that salmon, that Darkmoon salmon or Darkmoon daggerfin or something like that that's out there. Sure, you're fishing that up. So you can have really good food for all your Mythic Plus that you're looking to run. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on there. There's the racing events and achievements and all sorts of stuff to check out. The pet battle stuff we do to get the tokens, to get the dirigible that's there. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff added at some point down the line for Darkmoon Faire. So I keep gathering tokens to be like, I could buy it when it happens, man. I don't want to be, I don't want to have to be saving for years like I was previously, because
stayed on top of it. Yeah.
You got to stay on top of it. For me, it's also about like emptying all those quest things out of my bank. Right now, my war bank, I think, has like 11 or 12 of those quest things that are sitting in it.
You have to like turn into an NPC at Darkmoon
exactly
Faire.
Yes. So I'll be making sure that I go through probably on multiple characters and get all of those turned in, so that I can get that emptied out of my war bank, which will be really nice, and get a whole bunch of tokens off of doing that. So yeah, definitely worthwhile doing. Remember to do it when you can. Darkmoon Faire is always great when it's around.
Get your fish head items too for first week of raid.
Oh yeah, true.
You want to show up to raid with the fish head thing on, whatever it's called.
Yeah. There's like 3 different ones.
You gotta show the team that you're locked in, ready to take it serious, man.
That's right.
Show up with a giant fish head over your character's head.
That's right. All right. Notable hot fixes for this week. Now, a lot of this just comes into tuning stuff, but achievement-wise, the reading the misplaced work order will now reliably give credit for read between the lines. Now
that one is important, because read between the lines is one of the ones that you need for the Galagio campsite screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're having trouble with that, go back and do it. Read between the lines is like there's a bunch of books or other documents around Undermine that you need to read. It completes that achievement. That achievement is part of the meta going goblin mode that rewards your campsite. So that was a good one, because if that's broken, then you're not getting an unlock that you probably want.
Yeah. The umbrage for Umbrus is no longer part of the Cataclysm Hero, the Glory of the Cataclysm Hero achievement that's out there. This was defeating General Umbrus while he was affected by Mudghoul's Malice in Grim Batol. So, it makes sense they would pull that one out for folks to be able to actually accomplish.
So I wonder, like, now that Grim Batol is out of the
rotation,
season, like, is if you like go do Cataclysm Grim Batol, is it like it was, or is it like the new Umbrus fight? I didn't go back and do it.
I don't know,
because they changed Umbrus a lot from the way that
they did.
He was in Cataclysm to make him a Keystone boss. So I wonder if it's like a version of that. I think it's probably actually better the way that they changed it to, but I wonder if that is part of the prompt of changing it. Maybe you literally can't do it anymore.
Yeah, an achievement has been unexpectedly rewarding 5 Trader's Tender. The goblins insist that possession is 9/10 of the law. It seems better just to roll with it, so we've corrected the description on the achievement to include 5 Trader's Tender. That's an interesting one.
I love it. I don't know what could have created such behavior. Like, WoW is such a weird game with some of the bugs that pop up. So it's so funny. But yeah, I'm glad they just went, you know what? Let's just give people 5 tender for doing the achievement. Like, it's awesome.
You know how angry this is going to make people to have some weird number of tender every now and then?
Yeah. You just have I mean, at least it was 5. Like, they could theoretically
it could have been 9, and then you'd be like, well, this is really weird now. Why do I have 9 tender?
Yeah,
I'm now 1 away from being able to buy something all of the time. Yeah.
Or I just have like 9 left. I can never get it back to a round number.
Yeah.
I can't stand looking at this in my currency. Believe me, I know that struggle. So 5 was like, if it had to be something, 5, I guess, is pretty good, because they could easily price something for 35 or whatever.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's true. If it's going to go wrong, that's the best way for it to go wrong. They did some fixes here to class as well. Death Knight on a paler horse now works as intended inside Undermine. The Restoration Druid, they fixed an issue with a PvP talent that was going on there that was like not working properly. They also fixed an issue that caused Cyclone to bypass Ancient of Lore's crowd control immunity. In Evoker, you got yourself Preservation and Devastation getting some fixes. These are all like minor tweaks just to make sure, like, hey, look, Windwalker, apparently Slicing Winds was not treated as an AoE effect for a while, which was weird. As well as it caused, there was an issue that caused Slice of Winds not to function with Ride the Wind. So, like, this little bug fixes that, like the Trader's Tender thing, or like, I don't know how this happened when they patched the class and patched the game, but some things broke. So they're fixing the broken things. Just pay attention to that. I'm not seeing anything else that's like standing out as a massive issue here. They fixed an issue with
Warlocks.
Warlocks.
A lot of like stuff just misbehaving and like making stuff or like talents, behave properly. That was really what went out to the live game this week, I think.
Yeah, they fixed an issue with Warlocks where targeted versions of Rain of Fire would not generate stacks of Power Overwhelming, so you just weren't getting the stacks that you're supposed to be getting. So issues like that were getting fixed, which is good to see. I mean, again, this is why I like the down week, that 1 week in between when season launch happens. Lets them do this so that you're not like going into raid and being like, why are my skills not doing what my skills are supposed to do?
This button isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stop pushing it because you never know.
Exactly.
It might start doing something.
Yeah. Depending on which weird circumstances arise in my character's, play. So they also, in Dells, fixed an issue that could prevent players who had never entered Dells before from being able to configure brands, roles, and abilities. So yep, another important one. If you want tank brand or healing brand, you need to be able to actually do that. So that's a thing. The item rewards that they went through and fixed. Algari Mana Oil, Oil of Deep Toxins, and Oil of Baldur's Grace are now manually targeted, preventing them from automatically overriding buffs for players who are dual wielding. Yes, that is also important where, you don't want to like have an oil on one weapon and an oil on another weapon, but you just keep replacing the one over and over again because just by right clicking on it, it does that. So yeah, it's a nice little fix for folks there that were struggling with that. The surge pricing event now rewards an extravagant tip chest for 150 shipping and handling tasks, it was 250 initially. So they changed up the surge pricing reward as well. And then they did some PvP fixes as well. But the big thing this week is more class tuning, because there's more class tuning. So we had the initial class tuning that we've already talked about. They then added more class tuning because apparently, hey, we're not done yet. So this is class tuning for the 4th. This is going to be launch day class tuning, which I'm sure has affected some people's thoughts. And I know there was a lot of issues around them doing the last minute class tuning they already did. And me being one of them, I invested a whole bunch of time into gearing up an augmentation Evoker, which I'm now not going to play because they then nerfed it so hard in the week before the patch. Well, there's more things happening. So Kyvax goes, we regularly make class balance adjustments based on gameplay data and feedback from players on class performance. The following adjustments to overperforming tier sets along with compensating baseline buffs to make the start of Season 2 group content smoother and less reliant on new tier sets for players to perform well. We also plan to buff underperforming Season 2 tier sets to ensure they outperform Season 1 tier sets. These changes are going to be live on Tuesday. So yeah, there are a couple things there that are important. Number one is there are baseline changes happening to classes where they're getting like a fairly reasonable buff to certain abilities or nerf to certain abilities so that before you get your tier set, you're not just sort of kind of a junk class until you finally get that 2-piece that gives you like a 40% increase to your damage or something crazy, right? Typically tier sets, you want to be like your 2-piece to be like a 5% to 8% increase in your overall performance, and a similar thing with your 4-piece to be maybe the same amount of maybe a little less, to sort of encourage players to notice the bump when they get it, but it not be like, essentially what makes their class relevant. So that's kind of what it seems they're leaning in here. So on Holy Death Knights, your 2-piece bonus now increases the damage of Death Coil and Epidemic by 4.5%, was 3%. So that was one of the underperforming ones. For Havoc Demon Hunters, your Aldraki Reaver and its Reaver's Mark now increases damage dealt by 6%. The Thrill of the Fights increased ability damage is now 15% down from 20%. And your 2-piece bonus now has a 25% increased chance to activate. So that is their way of balancing out the Havoc Demon Hunters that are out there. Feral Druids, Sunfire was doing way too much damage, so they nerfed that by 40%. They also made it so that Lycara's Teachings Mastery bonus granted from Moonkin form was reduced by 66% because you're a Feral Druid. You shouldn't be doing more damage when you go Boomkin form inside Feral Druid. I'm just saying that's probably the correct choice. It really says
a lot about the historical state of Feral Druid over the last decade or so, doesn't it? What if you go Feral but go Moonkin inside Feral because it's better? That should never, it shouldn't even be possible for it to ever be like that, even when the tuning is wrong. So that's, you look at it and you go, those are big number changes, but think about that play style, man. What should Feral Druid be doing? And it's not any of this.
Yeah, so Lycura's teachings as an ability for Druid, for those who are curious, is sort of one of those things where every time you shapeshift into another form, you get a stat bonus for being in that other form, and shapeshift back. You keep that stat bonus for like a brief window of time. So the correct play for Feral Druids was like consistently maintaining this 5-second buff as much as you could by going into Moonkin form regularly, which is just not... Like I can't.
It's like when you think of a feral druid, like I don't know about you, but I think of a Moonkin. You know,
yeah. It's
I think of like what a feral druid should be doing in combat. It's like turning into an owl every 5 seconds.
Exactly. The only way this would work is if they could have like a large chicken form that was actually like a chicken that went bakak every time it shifted forms, and so you essentially had feral druids fighting a boss, and every now and then just chickens would appear and attack the boss for a second, and then they'd go back to being feral druids.
That would be cool, yeah.
Like if that was their play style, I don't know.
That could be a future tier bonus or like hero talent. Yeah, maybe someday, but not right now.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, Devastation Evoker. The Devastation Firestorm damage has been increased by 40%, so there's a large increase for them. I low-key think Devastation is going to be massively powerful this tier. I'm just putting it out there. We've seen consistent Devastation buffs over the last 3 rounds of tuning. So I feel like they're going to creep into this is a really strong DPS class point.
They're just kind of like nudging people like, hey, you got that Evoker you like. Well, Aug's not really the thing. And I think Devastation is pretty fun and like a relatively straightforward rotation to play. At least the last time I played it. Like, I'm not much of a caster. I don't have DPS brain, but I played some Dev in Dragonflight and I felt like I could pick it up and kind of have fun with it. So like, it could be an opportunity, you know. The whole class doesn't have to be dead just because maybe Evokers on the outs or augmentations on the outs to start the season. So, you know, we'll see. We'll know a lot more even by like next week after we get some rating in.
Yeah. All right, Hunters, man, your 2-piece bonus was cut in half basically. So the set bonus adjustment for a barb shot now fires at 100% as opposed to 200%. So I don't know if this means that it fires at 100%, which means it's easier to get it to fire, or because it used to fire at 200%, or whether it is now firing 100% less than it was previously, and that's bad. I don't know the Beast Mastery thing, but that is the change that happened. So I'm just reading it so you're aware of what it is. The Liberation of Undermine 4-set bonus for Beast Mastery set bonus has been adjusted so that Potent Mutagen reduces damage has been reduced by 50%, and the reduces the cooldown of Bestial Wrath by 0.25 seconds was 0.5 seconds. So based off of the 4-piece thing, that's a nerf. I'm going to say the top thing is probably also a nerf as well. They buffed the 2-set bonus. However, here's your caveat. All Beast Mastery damage and pet damage for your ability damage and pet damage has been increased by 10% across the board, which means you should feel more powerful just walking into the raid. However, once you start getting your 2-set,
right?
Yeah, that it won't scale you as hard as it was previously. We saw a similar thing with Mistweaver monks where all their healing was reduced by 4%, which is very sad. And then they also nerfed their healing of their insurance by 30%. For their 2-set buff. So just keep in mind that we are seeing some overall nerfs. Mistweaver Monk apparently was outperforming. That's kind of strange to me because they certainly weren't outperforming this previous season. So we'll see where that happens for folks. The Discipline Priest Lenience no longer stacks its damage reduction effect when multiple priests apply atonement to a target, which just makes sense to me as to why you wouldn't want to be stacking priests in a raid because everything all stacks on top of it. And the Oracle Preventive Measures now increases the damage of Penance Smite and Holy Nova by 20%, down from 40%. So a little tweak there as well. Rogues, Assassination damage increased by 4%. Subtlety, Secret Technique damage reduced by 5%. Liberation of Undermine, set bonus winning streak, the max stacks was reduced to 8 from 10. So keep that in mind. And then we get to the thing that I've been calling for like months. And I'm going to be in trouble for calling for this.
Since like September, maybe?
Elemental and Enhancement Shamans, they did some tweaking. I'm just saying. For Elemental, the new tier set bonus was performing higher than they would have liked. No kidding. So we're lowering the value of the 2-set bonus while increasing the damage of Elemental Shaman's baseline. So Liberation of Undermine tier set now summons an elemental for 6 seconds as opposed to 8. The 2-set bonus frequency of getting a bonus elemental has been lowered. The 4-set bonus of damage, the damage bonus of Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Tempest, Lava Burst was increased to 30% for 8 seconds as opposed to 20. So they gave a buff there to the 4-set. Deeply rooted elements, ascendants, procs no longer activate either the 2-set or the 4-set bonus in the new Liberation of Undermine set. So that's big. You don't get procs off of that anymore. The Echo of the Elements no longer causes the Jackpot buff to refresh when they appear. So that's another big nerf there as well. And then all damage dealt increased by 5%. So you just got a 5% damage buff across the board, which means you're going to feel real strong as Elemental walking into this raid. But hopefully, once other classes start getting tier set bonuses, you won't be doing 20% more damage than the next person. Yeah.
It seems like a massive uptime nerf to the way that the set bonuses were kind of coming into patch. So I mean, it's probably good. Like, I think overall the philosophy is sound, right? Like, you want classes to be strong and robust on their own. You want items that you acquire to be cool and make you feel more powerful, but you don't want these massive spikes where it's like, okay, your class is dead in the water until you get 4-piece, or your class is, middle of the road until you get 4-piece, and then you shoot way past the entire rest of the field. Like, they can't be that maker. It's a fine line to walk because they're the items you really want to acquire. They're like some of the coolest items in the game every season.
Yeah.
They have unique effects. They add power. They have unique Mog, whatever. Like, you need these items. So it's a fine line to walk of like making them good enough without making them like required. They can't be like make or break, but they have to be cool. So it's tough, and they certainly don't always get it right, but I think the philosophy here is sound, at least.
Yeah. So Enhancement, very similar situation. Enhancement Shamans in the Liberation of Undermine patch were performing higher than they would like. They're making adjustments to the new Flowing Spirits talent, as well as the Nerebar Palace and Liberation Undermine tier set bonuses. So the 4-set bonus for Nerebar Palace now has a 20% chance to summon an extra spirit when talented into Flowing Spirits. The tooltip will not reflect this change until a future patch. Flowing Spirits now has a 6% chance to summon a Feral Spirit. It now properly summons a random elemental spirit when elemental spirits are talented. And the 4-set bonus for Liberation of Undermine now triggers Doom Winds for 3 seconds as opposed to 4. It now increases the damage of Crash Lightning by 12% down from 15. And it now increases the primary target damage of Crash Lightning by 75% down from 100. So some changes there to Enhancement. Again, all I can do is hope that this just means that they're bringing them in line with more classes. So we see more classes towards the top of the chart, as opposed to strictly Elemental and Enhancement Shamans just being the kings of DPS by a substantial margin at the top of the chart. So I'd be happy to see that.
I don't want them to kill Shaman, but Shaman was definitely too strong.
I just want more classes there.
Like I don't want Shaman to become a thing that nobody wants to play, but it also it spent a lot of time in season 1 feeling like the default choice, or if somebody was playing something that maybe they weren't really meshing with, or they weren't getting the results they wanted, what should I play? Well, there was really only one answer in terms of class at that point, right? And that's not a good place for the game to be overall, even if Shaman mains are loving it. I can appreciate that, and it feels bad when something you like playing gets hit, but it's just, it's been World of Shamancraft for a lot of War Within, and we got to mix it up a little bit. I feel like
we do. We definitely do. So I am totally on board with seeing Shaman still be up there, in the top 5, top 6 DPS specs, but maybe on certain fights they're not the best. Maybe there'll be some opportunity there to have someone else shine, or have at least them be 5% better than the next thing as opposed to 20, something like that. Warlocks. I've heard a lot of happy Warlocks this past week, but we'll see what's going on here.
That's scary. No. Happy Warlocks. What?
I know.
That is...
It's a little twisted, I have to say. Demonology. The Liberation of Undermine 4 set has been adjusted so that casting Hand of Gul'dan causes your Dreadstalkers to do 20%. To cast Dreadbite at 20% effectiveness was 50, so there's a little nerf there. But they increased Hand of Gul'dan damage by 20%. And the Doom Guards summoned by pack of the Eredrune deal 15% increased damage. Your Gloomhound's Gloom Slash damage should be increased by 30%, and your Wild Imp damage should be increased by 30%. So Demonology, which is all about your pets are doing a lot more damage overall. So there's a nice big old buff for you. As far as Destruction goes, Liberation of Undermine 2-set bonus has been adjusted so that Jackpot fires the Flurry of 6 Demon Fire bolts at 100% effectiveness, down from 200%. So you're not having this 200% crazy burst of damage. However, Chaos Bolt damage has been increased by 20% because Chaos Bolt was not dealing enough damage before. Oh my god. Summon Infernal damage increased by 35%. Apparently they're making adjustments to Hellcaller to reduce the Soul Shard economy and increase its damage and as compensation. When the availability of Soul Shards increases for destruction, it reaches the point where Rain of Fire begins to surpass Chaos Bolt in damage output for single target due to difference in its cast times. Yeah, I don't think Rain of Fire should be your best single target spell. I'm just saying.
No. That's like an old school WoW problem,
yes,
right?
It is.
Like that's like a spell down ranking thing.
Yep.
It's in that vein of like do something totally counterintuitive because it's actually better. Yeah, we just can't have that. That's just improper tuning based on the way the class is designed.
I mean, currently Boomkin was better to, if there were 2 targets to hit, just 2, it was better to cast Starfall than it was to cast Star Surge, which to me also does not make sense. Where it's like, oh,
right, why even have the buttons, right?
Yeah, use this giant AoE ability as soon as you have more than 1 target. It's like that should not be the situation. So, yeah. All right, back to Destruction Warlocks. Hellcaller Wither damage increased by 35%. Hellcaller Wither now deals damage every 3 seconds, was 2 seconds. Apparently, developers recognize that with these changes, Wither damage will be impacted. They are contributing the lost throughput across the rest of the Hellcaller kit for destruction. So this is the rest of the Hellcaller kit. Blackened Soul damage increased by 40%. The Zellen's Ferocity now increases fire damage by 4%, up from 2%. And Zellen's Cruelty now increases shadow damage by 4%, up from 2%. And then last but not least, in the pass of tuning, Arms Warriors got their execute damage reduced by 15%. Because single target was the problem,
because
right?
Warrior was just doing too much single target damage, man. Got to rein that in. Got to make sure those Warriors don't get out of control there with their single target damage in the War Within.
So that's, go ahead.
I mean, listen, we're moving into a whole new world in terms of content, tuning, class design, etc.
Yep.
I don't know how this holds up, but like, I do know that my DPS warrior buddies were not feeling great and dropped off really hard in terms of attendance as season 1 went on. I don't know. I mean, they're obviously seeing something they don't like. That's why they make numbers adjustments. So there you go. We'll see how it plays out. I know I'll have some warrior buds back for this week. And they're good players, so that really overcomes the tuning in most cases, honestly. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be okay. But it's just like this is one of those feels bad things when you see it in the notes. It's like really like you're hitting arms execute. It's like that's their thing.
I know that's their thing. Yep. Okay, Trading Post. The Trading Post is live for March. The big discounted Trading Post is gone. So if there was something you wanted, I unfortunately you have now missed out because we're now into March. It's actually March 2nd today. So here's this month's rewards. And I will caveat that this is one of those months where, similarly to when they put out the Love is in the Air stuff, folks had a bit of a mixed reaction to, because every now and then Blizzard goes, hey, we got to make sure we are pleasing everyone in the player base, which is fine. I have zero issue with this. I support this. I think it's great. So we got the Wings of the Blood Monarch as well as the Wings of the Pearlescent Monarch, which go along with the Ruby Butterfly and the Pearlescent Butterfly. And so these are 2 mounts that are butterflies. They're unique models. I don't think they actually match up with anything that I've ridden around on before. So they're basically, I don't know why, but they're butterflies that have a spear. For some reason, they have a spear attached to their one leg, so they're pretty, but they're also they can get you if they were trying to get you with something. But they're very cool looking. I guess for me this month it's all about the pearlescent stuff. If you want something that just like radiates to a certain degree, there's a lot of stuff this month that just like it glows, it radiates, it's very pretty. And so for me, like the pearlescent wings, the big reward for the end of month is pearlescent shoulders that go along with some of the set here as well. There's weapons, there's like a bow and a spear and swords and whatnot. And they've done essentially the Blood Monarch version is just a red, slightly less shiny pearlescent version of those. There's Warglaives. There's some pretty neat stuff that they did. Probably the thing to me that was just an instant buy was the Vigilante's Deep Mask. It looks really neat on a lot of different characters. I tried it on a bunch of different character races, and all of them have this like very Zorro effect kind of look to them that made me go, yeah, I like that. I'm just going to pick that up right away because it's really neat. The pearlescent stuff, though, I want to see more of this. Okay, like I in general, I do. I think it's very cool to see this. I want a dragon that's pearlescent. I want one with like golden belly scales and like really wicked looking wings that just radiates as a dragon is what I want. So I'm glad they're playing in this color pool because I think it's very neat and fun. And I want them to make more things like that. I think would be really neat to check out. So in general, though, the ensemble that you can get is like a belt and a helm and shoulders that are either pearlescent or Blood Monarch themed. And folks can choose what they're going to pick up this month. But in general, I wouldn't say it's like the most exciting month for everyone, but I'm certainly glad to see these things making their way into the pool of transmog and mounts and whatnot that folks can pick up.
Definitely some unique stuff this month, although I got to say, this might be a month where I spend literally zero tender. Like, none of this stuff just jives for what I want my characters to look like.
Right.
They're kind of doing like, it's sort of like this pearlescent monarch versus the blood monarch kind of theming or something, like in terms of the sort of underlying lore here, which is cool. I will say, like, the Warglaives look really cool. Like, I feel like there's something you could do with, especially like a demon hunter with some of this stuff that would be a cool look. The mask is like, it's like a Dread Pirate Roberts thing, sort of. It's like, it's one piece, but that's the effect that it gives to me, that's pretty awesome, especially if you're like a rogue main or something. You probably want that. But overall, like, I looked at this and I was just like, man, it's too monothematic this month, and like I'm not in on this butterfly stuff, and I don't want to be like an entitled gamer or whatever. Like, this is free stuff. Like, you get it with your sub, you get your tender, you spend it how you choose. Here's the stuff on offer. So like, I'm not mad about it, but it's like, I feel like the trading post, my biggest complaint with the trading post is when they lean too heavily into one lane with the theming, and then there's just nothing else. And that's kind of where we ended up for March this year. We've seen it in other months too. And it's like, if the theme is on for you, then it's awesome because you want everything. And if it's not, then it's just like, well, I don't want anything, which I guess is cool because then you can save tender for a month where it does kind of meet your vibe for your characters or whatever. But, I think one thing they've done that's cool is like they've sort of themed different months differently. Like actually February was great because like February 24, we had we had kind of like the Love Witch stuff, right? This is very Love is in the Air themed.
Yeah.
This year they did more of a Lunar New Year thing with the firecrackers and the dragons and stuff, and then they brought back a ton of the Love Witch stuff. So like that was nice because you had kind of two different themes, and if you could kind of mix and match or pick different stuff depending on what you wanted. This year, like, the returning stuff is also sort of it's sort of in the same vein as the stuff that's on offer for this month. So I flipped through it and I was like, I think I'm good. I also like, okay, listen, when it comes to the bonus reward, we had that like watch or whatever it was at one time. Like, that's probably going to be the worst bonus reward forever, right? But like, you give me a head, shoulder, and waist for the bonus reward, I'm going to get a full transmog set. Like,
I know. My mind instantly went to Halloween and getting the full garb of the scarecrow. Like, immediately went to that and was like, how is it that some months we get an entire set of
even
gear
last month we did, right?
that looks great on a character, like a full set of transmog, and the next month they're like, here's shoulders, and you're like, wait, what? Like, or here's a watch,
right?
And you're like, what?
Right. like again, it's trading posts, so it's like there's no direct like cash convert. Like, I don't expect anything out of this.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm not gonna be on the forums like lodging a complaint about this, but it's underwhelming. You know,
It's just strange. It's so inconsistent. Like to me, it's a case of just make the iridescent butterfly mount the monthly reward and put all the iridescent gear in there for someone to purchase. So if they want the gear that goes with the mount, they can choose to buy it. And then they get the mount at the end. Like that to me would make more sense than being like, yeah, the shoulders are the thing that are going to be there. Like
Right.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, because like, well, first of all, if you give people a free mount, that's gonna result in probably the fewest amount of complaints, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
the collectors that are the most dedicated, the thing they really want to collect seems to be mounts. So if you make the mount the thing that everybody gets for doing it, and then like you can pick and choose if you want a head, shoulder, waist,
Yep.
that probably just makes people happier. Oh, you know, more broadly. So I don't know. I don't know how these decisions get made, and obviously, like, most of the stuff in the trading post is like new art usually, right? And that's like the longest time to spin up, to concept out, to model it, to make it work in the game, all that stuff. Like, obviously it takes a while to get stuff ready for trading posts. So I you know, I can't be too mad about it, but I really feel like this month is very underwhelming compared to some of the months we've had recently.
Yeah, like they're cool shoulders. Like, don't get me wrong, they're really neat looking shoulders. They have like literally butterflies that fly around them. They're very neat. I like them a lot. They are not a monthly reward when you gave me an entire, you know, set of armor for several months. That it seems very strange to do that. So yeah, that's that. I don't know who makes the decisions, but I don't know. There's a little bit of feedback there for folks if they were curious about it. Okay. With that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Bradley, Dustin, James, Kapawi, Cobra, Max, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show. We appreciate you and everything you do for the show. And if you want to jump in and support our show, you can head on over to patreon.com/thestartingzone. Great way to hop in there and support. Again, do this on your computer and not on your phone, because apps will charge an additional 30% to you every time a payment goes out. So just keep that in mind, and that's not just for us, that's for like any Patreon thing. It's just what Apple and Google and all them are doing to Patreon. Patreon, by the way, it's like they got worked a bit. I'm just saying, like in the past year, there's a lot of tax stuff that's been happening with them, not bad for their company, but affecting, you know, Patreons and people who do Patreons, where there's now laws are catching up with what this whole thing is. So there's other expenses factored into that now. I found out a little while back. So up to this point, TSZ has been operating on Patreon without it being taxable income because of how we run the show and how donations work and how the support works, which has been great for us because it's allowed us to essentially really stretch those funds out. However, it is now taxable income based off of laws that have come into place. And how Canada's handling this, I just wanted to describe this because it's kind of funny. So I think people will get a laugh. How Canada's handling this is they are outsourcing the calculations of this taxes to Ireland. So the funds from TSZ pass for tax calculations passed from the US, which is where Patreon's based, to Ireland, where it's converted to euros, to Canada, where it's converted to dollars again to do tax calculations. The world's a crazy place. So we appreciate your support because it helps us pay for things like those taxes that are involved on the income, but also it pays for keeping our archives online and sites up and everything else. So we appreciate you all. Thank you so much for supporting the show over the years. There's just a lot happening both, you know, in the real world and in WoW at the moment. And so you guys certainly make sure that we get up right and early on a Sunday before I have to go and do bargaining with my real life stuff to be able to make sure we get a show in for you and get edited and get out there for you. So thank you again, patrons.
Absolutely. We literally couldn't do it without you. So thank you for supporting the show. These many years. It's been a long time we've been doing it, and we've had a Patreon up almost the whole time, and still seeing, you know, new people check in and contribute to the show all these years later is really nice. So we appreciate you, and I can say with confidence the show would be in a much different state without your support over the years.
Absolutely it would. All right. We have a review. A great way to get these reviews to us is by going onto your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, and leaving us those 5-star reviews. We are still trying to nab a great resource for overseas. However, this one comes in from the US, which was easier for Jason to find, from Hogdog169. And the title of this is Intentional or Coincidence. First off, the show is great. I just came back after an 8-year hiatus. When I came back, I searched for podcasts to assist me in understanding the changes since my guild had died. Listen to all the episodes and listen to all new episodes, and between I have been listening to older episodes. Oh, okay. So you're listening to all the new ones, and in between you're listening to the old ones. Perfect. I have noticed that there have been a lot of comments from older shows point out things that happen in future expansions. Example, show 439. The person you were interviewing said delve many times. This episode was 5 years prior to the War Within. I also noticed you guys mentioned something about Dragon Isles around Legion and BFA, and there have been comments from you two that have been made in past episodes that have happened in future expansions. I will tell you, we do have Blizzard people who listen to our podcast. That is a thing that happens. But also, I think we just generally have good ideas that align with community stuff a lot of the time. So I think maybe sometimes they probably hear our feedback and make a tweak here and there. But I think often, we are just kind of tuned in a little bit to what the community and what the developers are thinking when it comes to that sort of stuff. We do not have some sort of crazy back channel where Ian is sending us emails being like, so what do you guys think about this upcoming thing?
Yeah, we don't know anything we're not supposed to know. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's the thing.
But yeah, thanks for reviewing, thanks for writing in, and welcome aboard. Glad to have you, and thanks for checking out the old shows. I do want to say, the Dragon Isles thing, man. I was pounding that drum for a long time.
You were,
because they sort of planted the seeds in Mists of Pandaria, right? And coming out of BFA, they Legion had a lot of storylines that reinvigorated the Dragonflights, right? You had this uncorrupted clutch of black dragon eggs, and you had Ebonhorn and all that, and that was all introduced. And you had sort of this resurgence of the blue Dragonflight, right? With Senegos and all that. So it was there's an opportunity here to really bring the dragons back into the fore. And that's what I really wanted coming out of BFA, was to go to Dragon Isles and sort of expand on all these stories with the Dragonflights. And what happened? We had to do Shadowlands first. So that was a bummer. But yeah, I was I was publicly essentially begging for a dragon-centric expansion for a while there, back in that era.
Yep. Yeah. And I will say that there is an audio interview from Jason at World of Podcasts at BlizzCon, where he was on a panel with Towley and Max and a bunch of other people, celebrating dragons and wanting dragons and demanding dragons happen and be a thing. And this was in BFA, I think, is what we were ending of BFA.
It was the day before Shadowlands was announced.
Yes. Yeah, it was the end of BFA.
And they announced a dragon-centric Hearthstone expansion that next day.
Yeah.
And Shadowlands, and I was like, jeez, we don't need to reinvestigate old trauma, but man, that Shadowlands announcement day was not a fun day for you and I feel like. But
no, it was just very funny to have that beating of the dragon drum and wanting it so badly, and us having to wait an entire expansion before getting to explore what that was for you. So no, it is coincidence to a certain degree. I think there is a certain amount of exposure that happens with folks over at Blizzard listening to us, and I think just aligning with what we're saying. But there have definitely been times where we've complained about something on the show, and then conveniently 2 weeks later it's fixed. So
yeah, true. A lot of times if we're complaining about something, we're not the only ones.
Probably. Fair.
We're not in a vacuum. We play the game with everybody else. We have the same experiences a lot of people have, and I don't feel like we exist in some different space with a lot of what we do in the game than other people do. If something is on our nerves, it's probably on your nerves. So, or if we really like something, you probably really like it too. So, that's stuff that comes out on the show. And I think it's stuff that comes out in the conversation around the game in a lot of different places. And so, hey, look at the shaman tuning for this week, right? That's the thing that everybody's been talking about for a long time. We've been talking about it on the show lately. So now there's some changes to shaman tuning. Part of it is just being immersed in what's happening in the game on a week to week, month to month, year to year kind of way. And we're all sort of in it together, right? They don't really develop the game around what the community says, but obviously they want to move the game in a certain direction, but they're also been a lot better lately about incorporating player feedback and how players actually approach the game into the design goals for WoW, I feel like.
Yeah. I definitely think that that us also having a large experience of previous expansions means that we can also identify trends or changes and as you said, sort of make references to this older content that aligns and maybe sometimes predicts where Blizzard might be going with something or might be doing with something. So yeah. All right. That's going to wrap up episode 673 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, then head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone or on Blue Sky, startingzone.bsky.com. The Starting Zone Discord is also available. If you go to startingzone.com/Discord, you can hop into our Discord server and support that. You can also go to youtube.com/The Starting Zone and watch our episodes there or listen to our episodes there. We have both a YouTube podcast set up there as well as obviously the raw video content. So if you're ever curious, like weird, the YouTube video is like 4 minutes longer than the the audio recording that comes out. That's because I don't edit things like ums and ahs and whatnot out of the YouTube content, whereas I do that for all of our listeners so that the podcast flows smoother and whatnot. So keep that in mind if that's something you're looking to do. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/The Starting Zone. And with that, for Jason, where can you find you on the internet?
You can find me in a couple places. You can find me over on Twitter, over there at Shieldwald, or you can find me over on Blue Sky. It's jlucas.bsky.social over there. So come say hi. I check both sites regularly. I mostly just post stuff to Blue Sky. So if you want to see what I'm up to, come check it out over there. You find video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. We're doing some WoW streaming to Twitch this week. I streamed a little bit of patch night Tuesday, just some explorations. We'll be doing some raid and dungeon streaming and stuff this week, Tuesday, Wednesday. So come say hi. You can get some progress on your drop for your mechanical Clocker Spaniel pet if you'd like. And I've been doing some. I did something really wacky on Friday night, and I streamed some Pokemon Leaf Green straight off a Game Boy Advance cart. So I might be doing some more of that. That's really fun. So we'll be doing some more video stuff over the next few weeks here for sure.
Nice. Try to find me. You can find me on Blue Sky at spencerhd.bluesky.social or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD or on youtube.com/@SpencerHD. Or if you're still using it, at Spencer_Downey on Twitter. And with that, for myself and Jason, thanks for listening and jobs done.